In this session, we are going to cover the inventory file. So far in the all sessions, we have covered the complete end-to-end architecture of Ansible along with the playbook structure and what are the component of the playbook structure. Okay, so now we are moving into the each and every component of the playbook, starting with the inventory, which is the very basic component in Ansible. Okay, where we define all the host, or which is also called the manage node. Okay, where you need to perform certain kind of a task. Okay, so we have a different ways to define the inventory, and there are specific rules when we define and call the inventories in the different playbook files. Okay, so everything we are going to cover in this session. So now, what is inventory file? So inventory file lists all the managed node and organize them into groups. The file is essential for defining which machine Ansible will target for automation task. Okay, so now what does it mean? Let me explain you. Okay, so far we have a lot of discussion on this, so let me explain you again. So this is our main control node, right? We have learned in the architecture, which has the complete Ansible setup, and from where we run the playbooks, right? And your Ansible contact the multiple managed node, okay, which we are going to manage with the Ansible. Okay, specifically like we are going to install the software, deploy the multiple code files, then to start the services, right? So these are the manage node, right? So your Ansible is going to reach each and every manage node and with the help of SSH, right? What we have learned so far, and then it execute the task in each and every manage node. So it has to aware about the information about all of the host where we are going to execute the task, right? So for that we create the inventory files, and this inventory file we do the different entries for the particular host, right? So we have seen some example in the Ansible setup session as well, where we have created one small inventory file and then we try to ping that host with the help of Ansible command, right? So this is the inventory file, okay, which is going to the manage the all the manage node. Okay, so this file is essential for defining which machine Ansible will target for automation task, right? So this is simple, all the machines where the automation task need to be executed. Okay, so now when we create the entry in a particular inventory file, okay, so we have to follow some standard for that one. Okay, so that means there are some predefined structure when we create the inventory file. Okay, so what is the structure is a very straightforward. The first is the section header, okay, which start with the brackets. Okay, then the host, okay, whatever the host, okay, whatever the managed host we have, which you where you want to execute the automation, you have to list down all the host entries there. Okay, and along with that we can define the variables as well. So that means when we define the host entries, okay, in your inventory file, so along with each and every host we can define the different kind of variables. Okay, so now what is the use of these variables? Okay, so I'm going to explain in this session. Okay, so now let us talk about the inventory files. Okay, we have multiple options, like we can create our own inventory files, and along with that we have a certain default inventory files as well, right? So calling the inventory file in Ansible. So how we call the inventory file in the Ansible? So once suppose that you have created your own Ansible files, or maybe you are going with the default Ansible file, how we can call that Ansible file in the when we run the different kind of a playbooks. Okay, so before that, let me tell you about the default inventory as well. Okay, so when we install the Ansible in the Linux system, so in most of the Linux based system, you will see the host file in this particular path, etc, Ansible, and then host. This host is the default inventory file. Okay, so that means your Ansible automatically look for this particular inventory file if you do not specify your own inventory file. Okay, so when we run the playbooks, okay, so the command to run the playbook is very simple, Ansible hyphen playbook, and then we can specify the name of our playbook, right? And along with that we have few more arguments that we can pass when we run the playbooks. Okay, we'll see that as well. Okay, so here we are just giving the name of the playbook file. We have not specified any of the inventory file here, right? So in this case it is by default going to look for the host file, which is created by default. Okay, now how to override the default inventory file, which is mostly the case we do practically in all the environments, in professional environments. Okay, we create our own inventory files. Okay, and when you create your own inventory file, so and when you run the playbook, so you have to execute your playbook with -i option, and with the -i, you have to specify the your inventory file name. Okay, so this inventory file you can create anywhere, either in your current directory or maybe when we create the project structure. Okay, in project structure, we can also specify the different directories according to our different environments, and there we can create our this inventory file. Okay, and then we can specify the complete path here with the -i. Okay, we will see this as well. Right. So this is the Ansible -playbook command. This is the location of our custom inventory file with the -i option, and then our playbook name, which the going to be executed. Okay, so -i inventory option we use to specify our custom inventory. So this -list host, this is a command which we can use to list our host. This we have seen in the Ansible setup session as well, right? So in a nutshell, what we have learned here, there is a default inventory file with the name of host inside the etc Ansible. If you do not specify your any of the inventory file, it automatically look for this file. Otherwise, we can create our own inventory file and we can overwrite it with the help of -i option. Okay, so now look for the format of INI file. So we have some different format when we define the variables in the INI file. This is again based on the number of hosts you have, how you would like to manage that one. Okay, so based on the complexity or the number of hosts, we can define the different the host name in the inventory file in some different ways, which is very simple. Okay, so INI file I am referring to the inventory file. Right. So the basic format, this we have seen in the Ansible setup session as well. First, we define a group name. Okay. And inside the group name, we defined the different host files, simple or host names or the IP addresses. Okay. For example, in our environment, we may have a multiple web servers, application servers, database servers, right? So we can categorize them in the different groups because we may want to execute the different kind of a task in each and every group of hosts, right? If it is in the web servers, you may need to install the web server and deploy your static code and to start the web servers. And if it is a database, you may need to configure certain database configurations. You may need to start the database. So we segregate them in a different groups. Okay, and then we define the particular host entries inside that group. So here you can see we have defined a group with the name of web_underscore servers, and inside that we have defined the DNS of our two servers here, right? Web servers here. So you can define the IP address also. So these two are the hosts, or these are the managed hosts, which are grouped under a single group name. Okay, so grouping is something like if you would like to perform any action on certain set of servers, okay, same action in certain set of servers, so we can refer them by a name instead of using the each and every individual servers. Okay, we can group them and we can call them with the help of a group name. Okay, so that the execution that we are going to perform, it will be executed in all the servers altogether. Okay, so we can write the inventory file in some different formats. So basically, practically, when we create the inventory file, we save it with the extension .ini. Okay, and apart from that, you can go with the JSON or YAML format as well. Okay, but mostly you will see this ini format, and I would recommend to go with this only. Okay, so this is just for the information purpose. Now declaring children's in inventory format. So this is the first way we have learned, right? Which is a basic way to define the servers. Like first we have defined the your group name, right, in the box, and then the IP address or DNS of your host machines. Now second is declaring children in ini fault. So that means for if your environment is a bit complex in the sense of you may have multiple servers or machines. Okay, so we can create them, or we can organize them in the parent and children format as well. Okay, with the colon children suffix. Okay, now what does it mean? So for example, we have defined a parent group. Okay, you need to define a parent group name, then colon children, and here you can define the group names. So in the basic format, what we have learned, we have a group. Inside group, we have defined the multiple servers. Now what we are doing, we are rearranging, or you can say we are doing the grouping of the different groups in a single name, which is called the parent group, right? So you can consider this is our basic grouping, right? So this is our one group, this is our second group, Okay, and we can create them as in children. For that we can create a parent group and with the children tag, and inside that we can define the name of the group. So by this way we can further simplify the management of multiple hosts to avoid any kind of a complexities. Okay, for example, here you can say we have defined a parent group with the name of data center, then colon children is the standard syntax, and inside that we have defined two groups, web underscore servers and db underscore servers. Correct. And this is our web server group where we have two web servers, and this is our database servers where we have the two database servers inside the db servers group, right? And both groups are defined inside the parent group. Okay, so this is our parent group name, and children means this is the parents group where we have defined the different childrens, and these are the childrens, right? It's very simple. So this is the explanation what I have explained to you. Data center colon children. So here this declare the data center as the parent group, right? And web server and db servers are the children child for the this particular group. Okay, so this means that any task targeting the data center group will include all the hosts in both web server and db server. So now suppose that you have a certain kind of a task that need to be executed in each and every server which is belong to the multiple groups. So you can call them with the help of the parent group name. So when that means whenever you are going to call this parent group name anywhere in the Ansible file, so that means you would like to perform the actions on each and every server which is defined inside each and every group which is part of this parent group. That's it. It's a very straightforward. Okay. So how it works in practice? So how we define or how we call these groups in the playbook files. So when we write a playbook, okay, so we have learned the what is the structure of playbook in the previous sessions, right? Where we had a separate session for the playbook structure, project structure. So in that we session we have learned the basic structure of playbook, right? So it start with the three double dash, right? Like this one. After that we define the name, and then we give the description, whatever the description that you would like to give for your playbook. Okay, and the third thing after first two we call the host, in which host you would like to execute the playbook. So in this host we define the name of the group. Okay, so whatever the group name you are going to define here, okay, your playbook action going to be executed all the servers that we have defined in this particular group. Now here we have defined the group name as data center, and when what we have inside the data center, inside the data center we have defined two childs with the name web underscore servers and db underscore servers. So that means whatever the playbook that we are going to execute with this particular host name, it is going to be executed in all four servers because it is calling two groups. Correct. So now suppose that you don't want to execute on all the hosts, you only want to execute on the web server host. Okay, so you can give the name group name of your web servers, which is web underscore servers in our case, right? Similarly, if you would like to execute this playbook on the database servers only, so you can give the name of the group name what you have given for the database servers, right? This is db servers, this is web underscore servers group name. Correct. So whatever the group name that you are going to define here, it is going to call all the hosts where the playbook is going to be executed. So this is very important point to understand, right? Because everything we are going to execute, we are executing in certain host. So we should aware about which host we would like to execute the playbook and how to define the different groups here. Okay, these directly groups we define inside the inventory file, correct? And then we have a task, right? So in the task we define what exactly we are going to perform. So task again we have a different session. So what we do, task is simply as the name is simplified. What are the tasks we are going to execute? Okay, so for this is the description. For descriptions we always use hyphen name. Okay, and then we specify description, and then whatever the command you would like to execute inside this particular host. So here is a simple example, ping. That means we are just going to run this playbook, and we are going to all the host. We are just going to ping the host. We are going to check the connectivity, whatever the host defined here. Correct. So this is a way how we can define the host name, okay, inside a playbook. Okay, so apart from the inventory file, okay, it is very important to understand how to we define the different groups and then exactly how we call that in the playbook file with the help of host. So now hope it is clear to you. It is just called with the name of the group name that we have defined in the inventory files, right? So this is the same example what we have discussed. And why we use children, why we do the grouping actually. So this is just to simplify the task. It create the hierarchical grouping of better organization, avoid redundancy by combining related groups under a common parents, right? Suppose that you would like to call the same host at multiple places. So instead of defining the same host multiple time, we can just do the grouping. And we use children make managing complex environment easier. So as I said, if you have a complex environment where you have a multiple host, okay, so in that case we can use this kind of a parent and child grouping instead of the simple basic grouping, right? So now when we create the inventory file, so in the inventory file, what we have learned, what we define a group name and then we define the different host, either IP address or it could be the DNS, right? Now, along with this particular IP and DNS that we define in a group in the inventory file, okay, INI or inventory file, okay, we can pass a certain arguments or certain variables as well. Now, what are the different variables that you will see? Okay, so this is our group name. Suppose this is our inventory file. So these are our different server groups. So this is the first server and this is the second server, or you can say the target group or the managed servers, right? Now here you can see we have specified two arguments. One is the Ansible user, second is the Ansible port. Okay, so this Ansible user specify the SSH user for the host and Ansible port specify the SSH port for the host. Now what does it mean? Let me simplify that one. This is our control node and these are our two are our manage node. So we are executing some playbook here and this playbook supposed to connect these both manage nodes via SSH and then install some software here in both the nodes, right? So now when we run the playbook, okay, our playbook is going to connect to these two hosts and host name entry will be pick up from here from the inventory file, right? And now when it is going to connect to the server, then which user it is going to be connected, right? Because it is going to connect to this particular Linux machine, so it has to connect to some user, right? So that means we can specify a username here with the help of Ansible user. So when this control machine is going to connect to your manage node, to which user it is going to be connected, the name here given 1 2, right? And on which port. So by default, your SSH run on the port 22. Okay, so this is the port 22 and maybe you have some customization. If you have changed the SSH port in your environment, maybe any custom port, then you can specify the custom port here, right? So that means with the along with the host name in the inventory file, we can specify the username and port as well to which it is going to be connected, right? These are the two basic variables that we pass in the inventory files. And now if suppose that you are not specifying these two variables, okay, then where exactly it is going to be connected? So in that case, suppose that in control node you are executing all the commands with the help of with the name of certain user, for example Sam. You have logged into your control node with the user Sam, and when you execute the inventory without variables, then it is going to connect to the manage node and it will look for the same Sam user here as well. So this is the default behavior. So group variables, okay. So group variables is just like we define the group of servers in the inventory with the parent and child association, okay. So for example, if you have a multiple servers, again based on the case to case basis, as I said, you may have a complex environment where you may have a multiple servers, okay. So these are the options just to hide the complexities for the this kind of a complex environment, okay. So if you have a multiple servers and you would like to pass the variables to each and every server which is part of a group, okay. If what we have seen in the previous, let me go back. So here we have defined the two servers, right, in the web server group, and we have defined the variable in front of each and every server. Now instead of defining the variable in front of each and every server, what we are doing, we are creating a group And inside the group, we are defining all the variables, whatever we would like to assign. Okay, so whatever the variable that we have defined in the groups, it will be applicable for all the instances or all the host machines which is part of that particular group. So it's a simple grouping where instead of defining the variables one to one for each and every host, we are defining as a group. Okay, and then we are passing it to the group. So here we have a group name web underscore servers, where we have defined two servers, right? And now to both of these servers, we would like to pass Ansible username and Ansible port. So for that, we have defined a group. And how we define the group for variables? So first you have to specify the same name as of your server group, then colon, okay, and then whereas. This is a standard syntax, just like we have defined the parents in the grouping of the servers, right? So we have to define the where here, and then you can specify the variables. So now whenever you are going to run your playbook and you are going to call this particular server, okay, it is going to call all this variable, and all the variables will going to pass to each and every host instance that is part of this particular server group, right? So these are some special variables that you can say. So Ansible host, right, which is the IP address or host name of the remote machine. Then we have the Ansible user, to which user we are going to connect, to which port your SS service is running. Okay, then you can define the type of connections as well when it is making. If it is not default, if it is local, that means if it is running on the local machine, not on any of the remote machines. Okay, and if you would like to specify the password for the connection, okay, but it is not recommended for the security reason, so we go with the passwordless. Okay, so these are the certain special variables that you can pass with this playbook for this kind of a variable settings, right? So now this is the architecture that we have seen in the initial session. So this is your control node, and these are the three edge servers, or these are the three managed node that where we are going to run the playbooks. This is our playbook, and this is our main inventory file, right? So this is the small example of the playbooks. Okay, and this is the inventory file. So inventory file, we have two groups, web servers and database, right? And this web server will be called inside this particular host. Okay, so this should not be underscore. If I go with this one, this example of the inventory file, so here it will be web servers. Okay, so this inventory file will be going to call inside this particular playbook. Similarly, you can define a separate section inside the playbook, and you can call this particular group as well wherever required, right? And the connection to the your host is going to be with the help of SSH. Okay, and how we run the playbook? Simple, Ansible underscore playbook, and then name of your inventory file. So here inventory.ini, so this will be our inventory.ini file, right? And then whatever the playbook that you have created, specify the name of that particular YAML file. By this way we can run. Okay, so now let us go with the lab exercise. So whatever the we have discussed so far about the inventory files, there are different ways of defining the inventory files. Okay, so let us see with the execution.